The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
You know what? Your Vancouver Canucks are pretty damn sexy, but you know what? They could be sexier. That's why we're going to get into the sexiest lineups possible here on Locked On Canucks.
They'd be sexier if Pettersson was green again. You know, for real. He needs that green.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks and also a Canucks writer for the Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into this sexy episode of Locked On Canucks, we got to thank you for tuning in. You know why? Because it's your Canucks every damn day. We're part of that Locked On Podcast Network. They're doing the most for sports fans across the world. And if you haven't done so already for our show, make sure you go subscribe, like, follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, all right? And, you know, we're not here with the sponsors. And on today's show, the episode is brought to you by Game Time. Stop right now. Go download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Kyle, it's a good thing you and I procrastinated on the lineup prediction episode because, again, the Canucks made a pretty splashy signing over the weekend, and you and I will get into that for the first time live. I also touched on it yesterday. Go check out that episode if you missed it already. But what we want to do today is not give the lineups that we think the coaching staff is going to put together. We want to give our lineups on what we want to see heading into next season. I don't know what Kyle's done. I don't even know what I've done, but we're going to go figure it out here over the next 30 minutes on Locked On Canucks. And maybe answer this question. Does Daniel Sprong get a chance in a Canucks top 6? All right. A lot of prediction time. Beggsy versus Bowen time. Let's go, baby.
Damn.
But before we get into that, let me introduce my co-host, Kyle Bowen. I missed you, buddy. How you doing?
Miss you too, man. One love. And we're back doing this, and that's assuming the best, man. Locked On Canucks. Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs at the Don't Those Art Lab. Hit the like button, man, because, again, we just think of the best. Because right now, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling from, I say, 78% of the Canucks universe is that the Canucks hit a grand slam with this Daniel Sprong signing and that their top 6 is actually, quote-unquote, explosive. I'm getting that type of energy. And it's like, you know what? Slow down, people. There's a reason why this guy signed for less than $1 million, you know? It's not as if we hit that grand slam. Like, are the Canucks legitimately a better team with their forward group minus Lindholm and with the additions of, like, Sprong, Heinen, and Sherwood, DeBrusk? It's still up for debate. It's a different team. It's a different dynamic. I'm curious to see what Tocchet does with all these tools at his toolkit, and I'm curious to see what you do with your lineup, okay, for real, because mine's a bit possibly all over the place, but it all centers around the obvious. Okay, so what that we have 40 wingers and things are different? So what that Tocchet has new tools to the toolkit, blah, blah, blah. Dude, if Pettersson doesn't step up, the results will be the exact same. We're a second-round team at most, at climax, okay? For real. So this combination that you and I are going to put that we're going to put out to the world right now, I hope that you and I both know that, again, the potential of this team, the offensive pedigree, the more shots, right? The more goals, the everything that happened in the second half of the season, for that to change, it really does rest on one guy, and that's Elias Pettersson waking up.
The alien needs to come back to Vancouver. And as you alluded to in the title, Kyle, can DeBrusk and Sprong help with that? Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to go Elders first with your lineup, or should your boy Beggsy start with his lineup?
No, let's go one line at a time, back and forth.
Okay, all right.
One line at a time, okay? For real. So you go first. You go first, man. You're 31 too now. So
all right. So with my first line, and again, you know, I'm going with Pettersson as your top line center. I know it's been JT Miller, but let's start with the alien in the room, Elias Pettersson. And Kyle, you talked about it, right? So much of the Canucks What they're going to do this season depends on what Pettersson can do, specifically in the playoffs, but also in the regular season. They got to, he's got to be at least decent there. And that's why, I'm tired of seeing Pettersson with, quasi top 6 wingers. No offense to, Andrew Kuzmenko. Oh, maybe a little offense to Kuzmenko and Mikheyev. Even Nils Höglander as well. But I want Pettersson playing with 2 bona fide top 6 or even top line players. And that's why my preferred line for the Canucks on opening night, the top line would be Jake DeBrusk, Elias Pettersson, and Brock Besser. I know I stuck with this last season, breaking up Miller and Besser. I'm doing it again because I think Brock Besser and Elias Pettersson have had that chemistry in the past. I think DeBrusk is an element to that line that JT Miller also brought during the Lotto line days. But again, with DeBrusk in the fold now, you can spread out the wealth. You can have Miller on a different line. I want to see Jake DeBrusk, Elias Pettersson, and Brock Besser on opening night.
Damn, splitting up Miller and Besser, man. That's something else. And look at SK93 right away with the comment, okay? Kyle already has the dub here. SK doesn't want that. Miller and Besser, really? You're going to break them apart after the season they had last year? Now think about it, because I'm going to think about it. Again, for this team to be more offensively explosive, they do need to unlock Pettersson, right? And for this team to be more offensively explosive, you would think that there would have to be more like 1-2, like a more of a 1-2 punch throughout their lineup, okay? And yeah, Besser and Miller are hard to play against, and they do their thing, and they bump and grind, and they get goals, but that explosive offensive ability between them via their chemistry, I think it's quote-unquote replaceable because it's not apparently there. Like, it's not there. There could be something else happening, and maybe, just maybe, you unlock the ceiling of this team by giving Pettersson all the tools. And it just sounds crazy, right? It sounds crazy because you're taking away from JT Miller, but I somewhat kind of understand your theory. That being said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Now, I'm gonna lean into hoping that DeBrusk, with his speed, his play driving ability, just his ability to be a big game player and quote unquote protect Pettersson, possibly allows those two to have just enough chemistry that they can balance out their lineup and keep Miller with Besser. And I'm going to do the same thing as you and talk about the top line first. And my top line has Elias Pettersson on it. Again, I'm talking about the ceiling. I'm assuming the best. All the love to JT Miller. But Pettersson at his best is a way better player. I know. Sounds crazy. 11.6 million reasons to say that. I know I'm crazy. But I'm going Jake DeBrusk, Elias Pettersson, and man, oh man, I'm going Danton Heinen, man. I'm going Heinen. I look at the intelligence. I look at all 3 of those players being able to play in all 3 areas of the ice. I think Pettersson's ability to be aided defensively, not that he needs it, but, just have a complete threesome of players that know what they're doing all around the lineup can bring out the best in Pettersson. And it's important for Pettersson to get back to that Selke level too, right? For real. Just being that guy. So I could definitely see DeBrusk, Heinen, and Pettersson be a thing. And you know what? I'm on that West Coast bud. And I love my BC buds. I want Danton Heinen getting a big shot here. He takes a discount to come back to Vancouver, right? The hometown team doing his thing. And I want the best for this guy. So I'm going Danton Heinen, Jake DeBrusk, and Elias Pettersson.
Damn, buddy. You know what? It's interesting because DeBrusk and Heinen have been friends and teammates for a long time, too. So they haven't played together a ton when you look at kind of their numbers together. But they have been teammates for a long, long time, going back to, I think they both broke into the league in the same year with the Boston Bruins. So, damn, the BC Bud bump. I love it, man. Okay. You know what? I like a little BC Bud talk.
We'll talk about what's on my mind after your second line, because now we're going into a dangerous territory here, okay? So anyways, what's your second line?
Okay, so my second line, and I think these guys both deserve an increased opportunity based on what they did last year. They were giving the Canucks a lot of value from the third line. But when they played with JT Miller, they were pretty damn good together. So I think it's time to elevate Joshua and Garland up the lineup. You got depth behind them. I want to see Dakota Joshua, Connor Garland, and JT Miller as the second line for your Vancouver Canucks next season.
Damn, that's something else, man. Bold. That's risky. But you know what, man? Here's the thing. For months and months and months, we're talking about this team needing more top 6 talent. And at his best, and we saw Connor Garland be at his best at times during the playoffs, whether it be on the stat sheet or just being the play driver, right? Just being that guy, like still stepping up when the moment is so big. Man, oh man, Connor Garland, Trevor Beggs is a really, really good player. And in this case, you kind of answer that hole, right? The Canucks need more top 6 talent. Well, what if they give that opportunity to Connor Garland? That's something else, man. That's bold, but I could see that happening, man. Because can't you close your eyes and see JT Miller, Dakota Joshua, and Connor Garland working out?
Yeah, I
Like,
can because they worked last season in limited minutes. They were really fantastic together. I think of that Dallas game, I believe that's the night that you and I were at the Blarney Stone. Canucks lost that one 2-1, but Joshua Garland Miller line was buzzing that night. They've had chemistry in the past. And look, Rick Tocchet said time and time again, he believes in Dakota Joshua. He believes there's another level. And Connor Garland is a surefire top 6 player. That was, a luxury on the third line last year. But you have other luxuries in your bottom 6. So I think it's time to give them a shot with JT Miller.
No, that's something else. Okay, I got JT Miller playing with his pal, Brock Besser. I know I sometimes chirp them for not having that sexy chemistry. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so think about this, right? JT Miller put up 100 points and Brock Besser's put up 40 goals. Like, how many of their goals or how many of the points they put up together landed on the top 20, top 30 goals of the year? You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have that part of their game. And I chirped them for that, but at the end of the day, it's about production. Who cares how they go in, right? So I have JT Miller, I have Brock Besser, and this one may be a little surprising considering that, Niels Höglander is a fan favorite here. But man, oh man, I'm leaning on Daniel Sprong. And this is crazy because I think we are kind of over-evaluating him a little. But I have a feeling that this time around for Daniel Sprong, he's going to get his quote-unquote act together, be a more mature player. Listen to Tocchet, because apparently Tocchet's the one that got him to pick Vancouver. For real. So he's going to develop into a better player. And it's a contract year once again for this guy. You get what I'm saying? And you're going to put him beside one of the most fiery guys in the NHL, and JT Miller, who happens to be very, very offensively talented as well. And then you put him with Brock Besser as well. Both those guys really good defensively, can kind of ease him into the way the Canucks want him to play. And he has that offensive ability that's never also been given more than 12 minutes a game. So you have a guy who has the skill set. He has this prove me attitude. He's under Tocchet, and he's in the contract year. And I think he could put up 55 points, 60 points. He could be good for that line. Now, you know how I talk about Miller and Besser? They're not quote unquote sexy together, right? Daniel Sprong, offensively really gifted. Maybe he's the one that, maybe he's the lubrication baby for that line. Maybe he elevates it, does something else. For real. I could see it happening.
Yeah, that's something else, man. Daniel Sprong, I'd be interested to see if he actually gets that top 6 shot in Vancouver. Because he hasn't really gotten that top 6 shot anywhere else through his NHL career.
It's him versus Höglander. It's him versus Höglander, man. You talk about the player type, how much offensive potential both those guys have when they're playing at their best. They both got to hone it in defensively. But I think that for this top 6 to elevate, now you have Connor Garland doing that on your end. But I just feel as if they need one of those guys, whether it be Höglander or Daniel Sprong, to be responsibly gifted to as a two-way player. Some way they got to do it with Daniel Sprong, but also just burst offensively, elevate from that 35 to 40 point player with Höglander or whatever to a 60 point player. Now Sprong and Höglander never done that before. Höglander not even close, but can they elevate? Maybe.
Well, Höglander was close last season, I would say, but again, no, a pretty sexy couple of top 6s so far. We'll get to our bottom 6s in the defense on the other side. Again, feel free to let us know in the comments who you think is winning the competition between Beggsy and Bowen. All right, let's wrap up the lineups as we continue here on Locked On Canucks. Before we do that, we got to shout out our friends over at eBay Motors. You know the deal. The Canucks are going to have that drive next season because they know that passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships. And you know what else it also is? It helps keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from for your ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, baby. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guarantee fit only available to U.S. customers.
People, we back, and we back doing this. What, assuming the best? Yes, the best about your Vancouver Canucks, and making predictions way too early about what this lineup is going to look like. Playing NHL 24, aka NHL 25, again, really early. Just having fun, man. Trevor Beggs, Kyle Bowen at the Don't Dose Art Lab, doing things, man. JT Miller and Brock Besser apparently getting split up. Connor Garland getting promoted. Daniel Sprong going to be playing with JT Miller. A lot of things going on here, okay? A lot of things going on. I saw a comment, though. It made me think about Pettersson, okay? It comes from Alex. Or, no, sorry, Alan, my bad. Alan Leclerc? I believe so, okay? He's saying that Pettersson's partner will end up being a player he feels a connection with. Simply put, it's time for Pettersson to come out of his shell and create some bonds with other teammates, okay? Bonds with other teammates, okay? I was talking to that kinesiologist, remember, from Douglas College/University, whatever Douglas is, and he was talking about how he started watching hockey again, and he was talking about how he doesn't understand the hype around Pettersson, thinks he's a bit of a quote-unquote bum, right? A board player. He just ripped the Canucks off for $11.6 million. Allen bringing up this whole bond debate, right, with his teammates. Man, oh man. That same kinesiologist was even more confused at the time when Pettersson got knocked down after the Nashville Predators scored a goal and nobody helped him. Do you remember that? I remember that.
Yeah,
I took note of that. Yo, I'm telling you,
it was game 4, I think. Yeah.
Pettersson's energy, it's got to change. It's got to change because something was clearly off. Now, before we get to the third line and the fourth line, just quickly want to ask you something. Is there any chance you see any chemistry happening between Daniel Sprong and Elias Pettersson? Because apparently they're kind of friends. That's what Sprong was saying during his introduction to the team yesterday. They met each other a couple summers ago. They stay in touch. You see anything there?
I mean, potentially, right? But at the end of the day, the coach doesn't necessarily play you with your friends, right? We've seen that with Petey and Höglander. Hell, we see that in all levels of sports, right? It's not necessarily about who you're friends with, it's who you have chemistry with on the ice. And, Daniel Sprong, I think, would have to make a hell of an impression if he's going to play on Elias Pettersson's line or in the top 6 in general. Like, he's going to have to come in a training camp and blow the wheels off because right now he's a bottom 6 player until he proves otherwise, despite the skill set, right? This is the NHL. You got to have a complete game. You can't just be a one-trick pony. And I think Daniel Sprong, again, elite offensive production. But again, this defensive metrics, and even on the tape, it's been pretty ghastly.
Okay, well, again, so this Rick Tocchet saying he wants to open it up a bit more, all this jazz, add more offense to the table. Again, you can add all these pieces and say what you want that the forward group is a lot better. This offense takes the next step only when Pettersson wakes up. And the last time Pettersson looked really dynamic offensively and also was really good defensively was when he was playing with Kuzmenko every single game a couple years ago. Anyways, let's get to our bottom 6 predictions. Trevor, lead off with their third line because I'm fascinated right now with the lineup you got.
Yeah, so maybe okay. I'll just go third line. So I think third line. I went with more of the traditional checking line, I guess you could call it. But there's some skill there as well. And I'm going with the BC Bud Danton Heinen. I'm going with Teddy Bluger at center, who did pretty well in the matchup role last season, and I'm going with Kiefer Sherwood, who absolutely worked his ass off against the Vancouver Canucks in the playoffs. And again, he's got some offensive pop to his game, but I think that's a line that is fast. They can check, they can defend, but they can also score. So to me, that gives you kind of a typical checking line, but I like a lot of elements there.
Damn. Here's the thing, Trevor. I see what you're doing, and I kind of understand it, but I feel as if this team needs to do us all a favor, and Rick Tocchet needs to do us all a favor and keep the best third line in hockey together for a long period of time. I think one of Rick Tocchet's worst decisions last year was rarely going back to that combination. Now, I know he kind of did it in the second half of the season, but he didn't give it a long enough runway to get that momentum back. Because I think that those three, you want to talk about bonds, you want to talk about chemistry, I think those three guys have it. For real, Connor Garland, Dakota Joshua, they're a forever pairing. You can kind of see it. They're best pals. They love playing together. And I just feel as if you get the best out of Teddy Bluger when he has wingers like that doing his thing. Like you see a new pep to his step. Like he's a little quicker. He's a little faster. He's a little bit more fun. And I want Teddy Bluger to get that opportunity based on the fact also that I want to say that he kind of took a discount. Like he's making less money than he did last year and he signed for 2 years. And I kind of want to reward that. And I feel as if, again, he got effed over. I was about to swear there, but he had a right to be a little pissed off at Take for never really giving him that chance again. That's just me. Now, I know they had Lindholm on the team and it kind of changed things, but man, oh man, Teddy Bluger at his best when playing with those guys was, in my opinion, a different player than Lindholm for sure. They played different styles when they were with those wingers, but man, oh man, when that line was going, it was way better with Teddy Bluger than it was with Elias Lindholm.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. So you're going with the best third line in hockey, Joshua, Garland, and Bluger there. Look, they were successful last season. I think I just got out a different road because I want to see Joshua and Garland play higher up the lineup. Now I'm going to end off with my fourth line here. And, the premise here was to come up with lineups that we want to see. And I'm going with sexiness. Okay. Will this work? I'm not quite sure, but here's my rationale. I think I got some players left on the board who have some defensive deficiencies to their game, who have a lot of offensive pop. So I want a fourth line that's kind of sheltered and can pop in those minutes. And these guys have proven to do that. So I'm going with Daniel Sprong, Pius Suter, and Niels Höglander as my fourth line. And I think the premise here is that if Sprong and Höglander pop off, they might be able to move higher up the lineup later this season. But you got a lot of offensive skill in that line. I just would not want them taking a lot of defensive zone draws.
Yeah. I don't really F with that line, bro. Don't really like it. It's too risky, man. Too risky. Tocchet's going to play that line 4 minutes a game. Straight up. This is my fourth line, okay? Or another third line. Pius Suter, Niels Höglander, and Kiefer Sherwood, okay? I think Pius Suter, a glue guy. Pius Suter, contract here, okay? Put him with Niels Höglander, and maybe they got something going. Pius Suter, also just a really smart player. There's a reason why he gets so many chances. Yeah. He's in the right spot all the time, and he's also that dude defensively, too. We're blessed to have Teddy Bluger and Pius Suter down the middle. I know it may not look as quote-unquote sexy than it did last year during, our last game in the playoffs when Lindholm was a bottom six center. You get what I'm saying? But, yeah, I trust in Pius Suter. And one thing I definitely want to see is Niels Höglander being a little pissed off that he's not playing top 6 minutes anymore, doesn't have that chance with Pettersson. But I also want to see Höglander use some of that energy with Kiefer Sherwood and just be an absolute annoyance against every team they face. Now, Höglander was annoying to a lot of players last year. He already did that. But man, oh man, him and Kiefer Sherwood on the same line together, buzzing around. I just feel as if that's momentum, man. That's something else. And, Begsy, maybe you can touch on this more than I can, but isn't there a better player in Höglander when he's kind of that guy on the line? You know how Garland has to be that guy on the line to be the number one source of offense on the line to really get going? Like I see maybe some similarities with Höglander, and I'm just not convinced that Höglander and Pettersson really have that chemistry. Now they're friends, but I don't know if they got that chemistry, that their player types match up. So seeing him in a bottom six role on this version of the Canucks with Kiefer Sherwood is more appealing to me than bumping him up the lineup.
Yeah, no, I like your mentality there, and I think that's a fourth line with, like I said, a lot of buzz to their game as well. So, again, I think we both have the mentality of Höglander in a fourth line role and ask him to do it again. And I think part of it is he wasn't very good in the playoffs at all. Can he have a repeat performance of last season where he was such a threat at even strength, but his game really fell off a cliff in the playoffs? So I think, again, the mentality is we both want to see him prove it again. I want to see Sprong prove it too. I think that's why I both have them down there. Yeah, I got some risk in my fourth line, but it's also kind of sexy too. All right. Let's wrap up on the other side with our defensive pairings and then maybe ask you who has the best Canucks lineup, the sexiest Canucks lineup. Mm-hmm. We'll do that after we shout out our friends over at Game Time. All right, you know the deal. If you're buying tickets, there's no other place you should be going than Game Time, okay? Game Time. If you're into Major League Baseball, guess what? They are an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app, they actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and that lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And if you're not into MLB, you can find tickets for concerts, comedy, theater, all that and more. Or you can watch my beloved BC Lions as well. You can find those tickets on Game Time. You know what the deal is, baby. On Game Time, they got last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. You got flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, seat views, and that lowest price guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Go download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks. Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs. Having fun, only talking hockey, man. Only talking hockey in this episode. No friendly stuff here. No checking up on each other. No jokes. It's us hockey nerding out, aka playing GM connected mode or GM mode in NHL 24 or NHL 25. It's this is what life's all about in the middle of July. I'm sorry, straight up. Now, Trevor, before I give you my defensive pairings, and we got to get out of here pretty quick, can you just find the Florida Panthers lineup in their forward group? Because I just kind of want to spew that out on today's episode so that the listeners kind of can listen back to this and compare it to that roster. Because, man, oh man, the Vancouver Canucks are sounding pretty deep up there. Speaking of deep, are the Canucks defensive pairings deep? I don't know. And I don't think so, based on what I normally see in my mind. That being said, I do think this is the year, or at the start of the year especially, we do see Hughes and Hronek split up. I'm starting to sleep with that idea, okay? Make love to that idea, because I just don't want to see Soucy and Myers anymore. I also want to just see Soucy play with somebody else to elevate his ceiling, and I think that only happens, if the Canucks make a trade, but I just don't see that happening anytime soon. And man, oh man, Philip Hronek, dude, they gave him that big deal. I think they definitely want to see if this guy can, carry a pairing of his own. But I'll let you start with your D pairings.
Yeah, so again, going with the concept of sexy, what I want to see, I agree. I don't really want to see Soucy and Myers together. But here's what I think the Canucks are going to do. And, I thought about splitting up Hughes and Hronek, but at the same time, I think it worked so well last year for the most part, right? You have a super pairing that's going to play 23, 24 minutes a night, and you have a bottom four, right? And I think they're basically going to split minutes. So the way I balance it out is I waffled, but I did decide to keep Hughes and Hronek together as your top pairing. They're going to play the majority of minutes. I decided to go with Soucy and Desharnais here. And really the rationale is, Forbort and Desharnais are both good defensively and black holes offensively. That's what the metrics kind of pointed to last season. So I think if you have Forbort and Desharnais on the same pairing, there's a lot of risk that those guys, sure, they can block passing lanes, they can check guys in corners, but will they actually be able to get the puck out of the zone? Soucy and Myers, I think, were better puck movers last season. Myers had almost 30 points, right? I know he had his gaffes in this game. Look, this is a flawed defense. We all know it. There's less sexiness in the defense, but I'm going to go with Hughes, Hronek, Soucy, Desharnais, and then Forbort and Myers on the third pairing. And again, I think you basically have a super pairing up top, and then you have two third pairings.
Dude, shut up, dude. We're not putting Desharnais in our second pairing, bro. I'll puke.
It's not a second pairing to me. It's not a second pairing. I think they're both third pairings.
Are you better off having
minutes, like we did last season?
Are you better off having like one super unit in Hughes and Hronek and two third pairings? Or better off having like two solid pairings? Like I just don't want to see Desharnais play more than 13 minutes a game, for real. Like, bro, Noah Juleson is just as good. He just like right now. I feel like it's gonna take a little bit of time for the Desharnais experience to be fruitful for the Vancouver Canucks if they actually think that's gonna happen. Right? Because they give this guy a 2-year. I don't think it's going to happen in the beginning of the year. I really don't. Look, I think there's a chance, and this is going to be surprising because I've been poo-pooing on him for a long time. But, the guy that I don't want to see be a top 4 for your Vancouver Canucks, and that is Tyler Myers, is actually going to be a top 2 defenseman, and he's going to play with Quinn Hughes. He's going to play with Quinn Hughes, man. And Hronek and Soucy is going to be a thing. And a part of me feels like it's going to work for the time being. Bro, we cannot have Desharnais and Soucy play together. Now on the third pairing, I don't even care what the third pairing is. Desharnais and Forbort together, bro. I saw videos online of people celebrating their ass off that Forbort left. It's kind of like when Spiza left up. Okay, I'm telling you that's a thing, bro. Telling you that's a thing. They only signed for Forbort because there's a small chance that Adam Foote can get to him and blah, blah, blah. But I don't see this guy being better than Noah Juulsen. I don't. Penalty kill specialist. Oh, yeah. Last time I checked that, Noah Juulsen was turning into one as well. You get what I'm saying? But man, oh man, I don't really care who our third pairing is. I'm not even going to go there. Come on, Trevor. Vincent Desharnais as a top 4 defenseman?
Bro, I've said it 3 times, but you saw how the Canucks had their defense played last season. It was a top pair and 2 third pairs. The second and third pairs split minutes. There was not much difference there. And again, I think there's too much of a black hole offensively with Forbort and Desharnais on the same pair. Look, I wouldn't be surprised, and maybe we'll get into it later this offseason, if the Canucks trade from their forward depth to boost their defense. But I think they want to see how the season goes first and foremost as well.
Bro, I said it earlier, well, not earlier on this episode, but in our group chat that, I could definitely see the Vancouver Canucks capitalize off a hot start from a guy like Daniel Sprong and just flip him for a defenseman, man. Straight up. I could see something like that happen, man. I could really see something like that happen, man. Like Rutherford and Alvin always thinking ahead, and there could be something there. Like 27-year-old Daniel Sprong, maybe he has like 8 goals in the first 16 games of the season, and they flip him for another 27-year-old defenseman who they can help balance out some of their puck moving deficiencies on defense. But man, oh man, look at SK93. This guy had Desharnais playing with Quinn Hughes. I mean, how much worse is that than Myers playing with Hughes? I just think it's going to happen, man. I think we're going to see it. I think that, and it's not that I really want to see it. I think there is a superpower having Hughes and Hronek together. Like that's the X factor. But based on the fact that this team actually got worse on defense, we're going to have to maybe see a split up. And also, Hronek and his camp gave Alvin and Rutherford a tough time when it came to this negotiation. And maybe it's like, okay, cool. You want this money? Well, really, really help us out and prove you can do something else. Prove you can be more than what you were last year. Because what you were last year was a really good defenseman. You did the thing. You did your thing. You raised our ceiling, but you played with Quinn Hughes all year long. We're going to give you this money. We're going to give you this term. We're going to have to see for a bit if you can do it on your own. And him and Soucy could be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I feel like we're grasping at straws a bit here. Look, might I remind you on opening night last season, the Canucks defense was Hronek and Hughes, Cole and Myers, and then you had Juulsen and Hirose. Okay, look, this defense was worse at the beginning of last season with Soucy on the shelf. To me, it's a similar defense. And what did the Canucks do? They went with Hughes and Hronek. I wasn't that warm to it at the beginning. I thought they should be split up before he signed that extension. But now that he's in Vancouver for the long term, now that I see this defense on paper the way it is, I think you got to route the top pairing, play the wheels off of them. They can handle it, and then figure out the rest of the defense. I think maybe as we get into the offseason, we'll talk about some more ideas that we have to fix this defense. But for now, we got to get out of here, okay? Shout out to the everydayers, the occasional listeners, the first-time listeners, the new subscribers, and those of you who join us on the live show on YouTube. If you didn't join the live show on YouTube, if you're listening on podcasts, wherever else, leave us a comment. Who had the better lineup, Kyle or Trevor, Begsy versus Bowen? All right. Kyle, say to the people before we get out of here.
Okay, here are the forwards that played Game 7 for the Florida Panthers, okay, against the Oilers, okay? So that I don't know the lineup, like the line combinations, because that's kind of changed up now because of all these signings. But okay, Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Rodriguez, Lundell, Barkov, Bennett, Kachuk, Okposo, Lomberg, Luosterainen, Tarasenko. I might be missing one person, but you just start going through those list of players, and honestly speaking, I'm very impressed with what Alvin and Rutherford did this offseason, okay, with their forward group, and I'm curious to see what Taka does with this puzzle, okay? This guy loves puzzles. Anyway, Spagsy Bowen at the Don't Doze Art Lab. Locked on Canucks. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out a lot. And one love. We'll do this again tomorrow. Again on the best Canucks show on YouTube. What?
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.